yet again, we're hearing from another church leader, a stake president and a 70 up in Sandpoint, Idaho, last week, suggest that they were following the prophet by getting the Fauci Ouchie, and that those who chose not to get the Fauci Ouchie were indeed struggling and were not following the prophet, and that by not doing this, that this has hurt their testimony. That's an oversimplification, but I can tell you that's not what the prophet was saying. So this happened locally, even in my own stake. One of the counselors of the stake presidency had talked about this, encouraged, and said, this is from the prophets, from the top. How can we question this? Concerning getting the Fauci Ouchie. And to me, I knew that was an oversimplification of what people understood. And it's that understanding that from the prophet that led people to feel outcast and kicked out. There's people in our stake still who were escorted out of the ward, out of their building, for not masking up, and they haven't returned back to that ward. So they do attend a different ward, but they don't have ministering brothers and sisters because records are being refused to be transferred or something. So, but it's this oversimplification and misunderstanding that that's what the prophet said, when in fact that's not what he was saying. And I know 1,000 people have gone over and read it, but I'm just going to tell you what I understood and felt the entire time, because I don't feel like it's a one answer for all people, that it literally came down to discernment. We were told that there would be a sifting. We were told that we would have to have a spiritual connection and personal revelation. So to me, this was just one of those opportunities. Notice I say opportunities, because he's not, the prophet's not declaring by prophecy, get this jab and you will be safe. No, they're speaking to a worldwide audience, to a worldwide church, and it's different all over, and it's different for different people. In fact, when President Nelson got his jab, he mentioned that he spoke with his doctor about his concerns, but he was also in a high-risk category. And after consideration and prayer, they came to a determination of what they should do. This is the same process I feel like we all should have followed. For me, when I spoke with my doctor, I didn't even get a chance to ask him, because he was trying to sell it to me like there was an incentive behind it, and I just got a bad feeling about it. And I had already done my research well ahead of time, before all this, before it was politicized, before any of that stuff. And I was not in favor of getting it. I've always been a proponent for generally getting vaccinations, things like that. Not so much the annual flu one. I noticed that when I did get that, I got sick more frequently. But when I didn't, I did not get sick as frequently. So I've already chosen to not take regular flu things. Plus, I knew in 2019, October of 2019, I was substituting at a high school, and one of the students was going to Anaheim, where I was born, where Disneyland is. He was going to Disneyland, and he was excited, Star Wars stuff, and I remember seeing an article in the news in October of 2019 about the railway system and sicknesses and people getting sick, and that these were mainly Chinese tourists, and it was a fast-spreading unknown flu virus, primarily among the Chinese tourists, but it was spreading to everyone. And so I had some concerns and brought it up, and I thought, oh, hey, maybe we should, check on him and be concerned. I was thinking of the student and his family. But no, nothing comes of this. Lots of people get sick in November and December, and then February, March comes around, and then all of a sudden we have this big sickness and lockdowns and all that stuff. So, but to me, no, I'm not, that's not what the prophet was saying. I prayed about it. We had incentives at work to get it. They're like, you will get extra time off, won't come out of your sick hours, no problem, and here, little bonus, a discount card for something.
No, I thought it was ridiculous. Even mask wearing I thought was ridiculous. So ridiculous I bought a Mandalorian helmet and wore it to school, or not school, wore it to work. Now this is later on down down the road. This has all been almost a year of everyone having to wear masks, being ridiculous. In fact, I often went to church. We went without our masks, and it wasn't out of some sort of rebellion. It was simply because I just forgot. I'm like, oh yeah, that's required. I'm like, yeah, but seriously, are they really going to kick you out of the church for not wearing a mask? That's ridiculous. They didn't do it in my ward. They did it in other wards. And the times that I did wear a mask, I always took it off because I like to breathe. And I'm also trying to communicate with my kids and smile at them in the pews. And I got a baby that trying to get some kind of facial recognition with. And so I don't want the image of me wearing a mask to be a normal thing for my baby. So up in Sandpoint, Idaho, you have a stake president brings up, oh, I got some concern. And don't worry, I've included all that in the description below, plus what Connor Boyack spoke on it in a video he did. But the concern was people's testimonies being hurt because of because the belief that the prophet instructed the people of the church worldwide to go and get the Fauci Ouchie, that was a commandment. Um, the thing is whether you got the Fauci Ouchie or did not get it, but that was your view on it, the view was wrong. And there's going to be people say, "Oh, you can't say that," blah blah blah. No, I can. That's not what he was saying. We were not being commanded by God to all go get the Fauci Ouchie. That's not what follow the prophet meant. Follow the prophet meant seek your discernment. Look at the practical things and bring it to the Lord. Now, I have my oldest brother who was forced to get the Fauci Ouchie for work, and he ended up dying from a complication of the heart. Then I also have a grandpa who died from the illness, from the virus. But he was one of those staunch people that looked at it and said, "No way, I'm not getting that. I'm not even looking into it. No, that's completely bad." And so he opted to pass away. And those are their choices, right? But the part that is missed is it's not a one size fits all. It wasn't a commandment, and if you die while doing it, then blessed are ye. Because we keep hearing this over and over again about, well, if the Lord's servants won't lead you astray, or if you do something that a leader of the church instructs you to do, you'll be blessed for it, even if it doesn't work out. Yeah, I know the Lord loves effort, but at the same time, the Lord loves us to act for ourselves and not to be acted upon. That when something like that does come, that we do seek personal revelation and not just blindly take it and go with it, or ignore it, because that's our surface plain view, our myopic view. And I had that conversation with somebody today. Is their view? They're like, "I'm not going to do that. I want to keep my agency." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Well, that's not what he was asking in the first place. So you missed it the first time. It's not what he was asking. That's not what he was instructing us to do. Temporary policy is not doctrine. Is this a situation where we're all looking at the serpent on the staff being held up, and all we had to do was look because it was so simple?" Well, I'm I'm looking to Christ. Absolutely. In fact, when this all came out and I thought, and I was praying and bringing it to the Lord, some of the thoughts that I had come to my mind is, well, if we're faithful, you know, the the Lord will, you know, not allow our enemies to overtake us. Or I thought of Paul, where he went, or was it John, who drank poison and it didn't affect him, but then another servant went and drank poison, and the same poison, and died. And I thought, well, if we're acting out of fear one way or another, we're doing it wrong. And so that simply was my view on it. That if we're scared that it's going to kill us, so scared that we're not going to take it, then we're acting out of fear. Men's hearts failing. If we're so scared that we're going to take it and trust in the flesh of the arm of flesh to deliver us from all things, again, then we're doing it wrong. But wait a second, the Lord inspires men with good insight and knowledge and know how to do this. And
I believe that. But this came of nefarious means. We all know now. You know, a lot of us knew back then, but nobody listened. Still, people no, still nobody listens. The point I'm trying to make is I'm not speaking ill of that 70 or the stake president or the counselor in our stake presidency. In fact, it's funny because the 70 said, I'm not trying to judge anybody, whatever your political views or opinions or your medical opinions. I don't care about that. Well, it's very clear he doesn't care about that. We know that. And he is judging because he's saying, I followed the prophet. But if you didn't, and you chose not to follow the prophet, yeah, oh my gosh, that is wrong. This is one of those times when you can actually witness a servant of the Lord and go, okay, there's a misunderstanding there. Am I putting my own trust or my own thinking in front of a servant of the Lord? What authority do I have to do that? I'm a saint. I'm a child of God. I'm doing exactly what I was asked by God and by the prophet. And leaders are often misled, confused, and make very poor decisions. And the Lord works with it. But he also sees if those leaders will also be humble enough to listen to us other saints who are just the pawns and little people in comparison of calling, because he's no respecter of persons. Callings don't really matter. It's somebody who has been prepared and has the means and capability. The Lord uses them, but they don't have all of the gifts. They're still to learn and gain gifts from others as well. We all serve in an ideal place where the Lord has deliberately sent us and where we have chosen throughout our lives. It's not by mistake. There's purpose in it all. And I think we do need to listen to one another, communicate with one another. And this is not contentious. Disagreement is not contention. Some people who are unfamiliar with disagreement or unfamiliar with resistance to their view on things will take anything that is in opposition to what they view as contention. And that is a false idea. That also needs to be done away with. Our prophets and apostles, the idea there is you have different various gifts of the Spirit. You have synergy, a council of different people working together, all having the Spirit of the Lord. This is what we're supposed to do as saints in His church. We're supposed to come together and work together and be one in Christ. Despite our different views, we are guaranteed to have different views and different opinions and thoughts simply because we've taken different paths through life and have different experiences. Thus, we have different insights. And it's naive of us to ignore one another. I love listening to somebody else who I know is far superior in something than I am, which is basically everybody. I love learning from people who are passionate about other things. And I think we need to not demonize these leaders or anything, but seek to peaceably speak with them, because I feel like they're inserting an opinion of what they believe, an opinion, their own interpretation. And this has been a point of contention with a lot of people. And the reason I'm bringing it up is I feel like it's going to get brought up all over again by more and more people as word spreads about it. And I just want to have a common sense look at it. I have my view on it. I think the Fauci Ouchie is something that's man-made. It has it was used as a way to gain traction, gain hold on liberties and freedoms. It's a poison by degrees. That's all that is happening. We see it in the Book of Mormon. We see evil trying to overtake somebody by poisoning them by degrees. That's what this is. That's what the Patriot Act was. That's it. We've been getting poisoned by degrees for a long time. But there comes an end point. And yes, confident in our covenants. We need to be confident in our covenants because that's how we truly overcome the world. Is first by covenant living and putting away the cares of the world and the things that would make us resentful and and all of those things. We could still talk about our opinion and everything, but to get worked up, to hold a grudge, to say, well, I'm not going to church because of somebody else's opinion about something, that's childish. That's not childlike, it's just childish. And I'm not going to say in my opinion because that's just what it is. So that's basically what I wanted to chat about today is I think people should not misunderstand and think that's what the prophet said. That there are greater dangers, especially spiritual dangers, that manifest themselves in physical situations. So, hey, stay strong. If you have a leader tell you that the Fauci Ouchie was commanded by the prophet, was commanded by the Lord, and this was a Zion's camp for us, a testing of everything, like, regardless if somebody died or did not die or anything, the Lord, his promise goes with all of those people, regardless if they're living up to the promise. But we're also held accountable for the things that we ought to know or we should know better, like seeking discernment for our own study and then bringing it to the Lord. And asking, is that what the prophet actually meant, Father? Or is that what we're reinterpreting it to mean, to justify our actions? Am I justifying it for not taking it? Or is somebody else justifying for taking it? The bottom line is, if you went to the Lord and asked, and you were moved one way or the other, then you did it correctly. If you're not acting out of fear and acting out of sincere understanding, and you are someone who acts on promptings, then you did it right. The Lord provides a way. And that's all I want to say. So take care. Love you guys.